Okay, hello, welcome to week 9. Week 9 theory part. Prop. So, what is week 9 theory part about? We enter now the last period of the last block of our course, and it gotta be crazy. Okay, so we did a lot of crazy stuff. When you remember, we started with the cave. We started with the cave and how to get out of the cave. And Socrates and Plato, what you can read with them, they're trying to get out of the cave in order by rising up, by climbing the up, to raising the consciousness, to go up, step up out of the cave into the light. Okay, they go somewhere up there in order to find the light. Okay, this is an anabasis. Literally, they ascend, they step up out of the cave into the light. Okay, these Socrates initiates the Socratics, the classical, highly influential Greek philosophy as such. They also were pretty crazy, intense philosophers before the Socratics. And one of those philosophers was Parmenides. Parmenides lived about a generation before Socrates. There's a myth, a story that Parmenides met the very young Socrates, but it looks like this was made up by Plato. Okay, so don't forget all the Socrates stories we have. Most of them, they are made up stories that Plato imagined. Maybe what of it is true and what's not, it's very difficult to find out. Okay, so Parmenides was before. There was about 500 BC, 500 years before the birth of Christ. So that was about 2,500 years ago. Parmenides lived what is today in the south of Italy. So he's like a South European thinker. Okay, and what he did, he wrote a book called Periphysius, what roughly translates into on reality. And interesting is how he wrote it. He wrote it in the form of hexameter. That means he wrote a poem in the style of Homer and Hesiod. That means epic structure to his writing. So meaning he followed a certain number of syllables in a line, and each line would fit this verse meter. Okay, and he wrote also in the language that we knew from got more familiar with Hesiod and Homer. So very old school language, and he writes basically this very long poem. But interesting with this poem is that this poem basically founds logic. It founds the systematic inquiry into reality. It's like the first book that focuses on logical arguments that try to wrangle, to come to grips what that is, that reality is. And what this is being. What is being? What is? What is being? This is the question that Parmenides investigates in this very long poem. It's not very long. It's about 100 lines. So please, and I call it the mythos of Parmenides. Mythos is a word that we are already familiar with. This is a very important word for Plato. It's a very important word for Socrates. For Aristotle, and it basically comes where like it gives meaning to the word storytelling. Okay, mythos is just a word, Greek word, but it's a particular word. It's a word that is questionably true. It's a myth. It seems true, but is it true? This week's reading is one translation of Parmenides' poem, as it's often called. So it's a combination of, it's a teaching and it's poetry at the same time. Okay, so please read this week's reading. It's one translation. We know after you read this translation, it's not very long, come back to this video, and then we go and have a look in another translation. We try to very slowly, step by step, try to think about those lines that Parmenides writes. Okay, so please do the reading. It's a quick reading, takes maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes maximum. These are very few lines. It's a very influential poem. You all who do philosophy, all you talk about theory, all who want to talk about what this is that really is, need to have read Parmenides. Okay, so please read this one translation now. Thank you. Welcome back. You just read one translation. Let's look at it. Let's look at another translation and decipher it more. So the mythos of the mythos of Parmenides. Okay, so this is you just read the poem. I have here the original Greek. Yeah, it's like a one version of the original Greek. And to the right, a translation by Peter Kingsley from his book Reality. And it's a fitting title because that was also the title of Parmenides' original poem. And it goes something like this. Okay, the mares that carry me as far as longing can reach rode on once they had come to fetch me onto the legendary road of the divinity that carries the man who knows through the vast and dark unknown. Okay, so this is a journey. This is about a trip that is taken on the backs of mares, on horses. Hippoi, that's the horse, the Greek word for horse, hippo. So hippos. Horses carried the main character and even farther than his heart could even desire. Okay, this is a crazy a journey on a very crazy road. It's a road of a divinity, of a goddess, through the vast and dark unknown. This is a journey through darkness. And on I was carried as the mares, aware just where to go, kept carrying me, straining at the chariot, and young women led the way. Okay, so these are very smart hippos, very smart horses that knew exactly the way. And interesting is, like, these horses were like carrying, pulling a chariot, a vehicle, and this vehicle was led by young women. Let's say plural, young women. The ancient Greek is kurai. That means we can translate it as couriers. So there was couriers. Two young women, two very young couriers led this vehicle. Okay, and so our main character is on a vehicle that is led, controlled, steered by women that steer horses. Okay, and the axle in the hubs let out the sound of a pipe, blazing from the pressure of the two well-rounded wheels at either side as they rapidly led on, young women, girls, daughters of the sun, who had left the mansions of night for the light and pushed back the wheels from their faces with their hands. So we described that this chariot had two wheels and they were spinning so fast because, you know, this is an action adventure. We are the horses, they are racing. This is a race and they run so fast that the wheels start emitting fire. They're on flames. So fast are the horses running. And these two girls are the daughters of the sun, who left the house of night for the light. Okay, so they are left light behind into some darkness, and they are pushing the veil of darkness from their faces with their hands. Okay, there are the gates on the pathways of night and day, held fast in place between the lintel above and the threshold of stone. Okay, so we are on this road and we come to a kind of crossroads where two paths, the path of night and the path of night, the path of night and the path of day meet, and there's like a big door, a gate that is set fast in place. So there's something above that holds it and something below that holds it. And left and right, there's the pathways of night and day. They reach right up into the heavens, filled with gigantic doors, and the keys that now open, now close, are held fast by justice. She who always demands exact returns. Okay, so we arrive on our journey to a door, and there's a bouncer in front of this door, and this bouncer is none other than divine justice, the goddess of justice. Yeah, holds the keys to open this door. Okay, and these are very strange keys. These are ambient turning keys. That means they're close, and to return them again, then the lock. Okay, that's just a note. And she's very, she seeks out fitting judgment, so fair. You know, it should be whatever you do when you deal with her. She seeks out fairness, and with soft, seductive words, the girls cunningly persuaded her to push back immediately, just for them, the bar that bolts the gates. Okay, so these girls, super sneaky, they knew of words, and these words are logoisin. Okay, so these are logical words that these girls knew how to whisper into the ear of divine justice to say, yo, goddess of justice, could you please, because we are so sweet, we are so nice, could you just, push back the bolt and just let us sneak past? Come on, just for us. So they knew what to say. They knew how to convince justice. Come on, let us in. Okay, just give us the back door. Could we sneak in to the back door? Do you have like a little special way for us to sneak past? And so she did. And as the doors flew open, making the bronze axles with their pegs and nails spin, no one, no the other, in their pipes, they created a gaping chasm. Okay, so Justice says, all right, okay, good for you, I'll let you in. And she opened it, and she's not only opened it slowly, the moment she puts away the bolt that locks it, these two gates, these two wings, smash open. And just as those wheels caught fire and spin and fire up great fireworks by the horses pulling the vehicle, like that also the joints, how the door is connected to those walls, catches fire. Okay, this isn't a firework. Poof! This is a massive explosion. Okay, so this is an action adventure with explosions, with shots fired. massive stuff on explosion. And then as they open the doors, it opens itself a gaping chasm. Okay, this is a yawning mouth of black emptiness. Opens itself up. And straight through and on the girls held fast the course for the chariot and horses straight down the road. Okay, and the journey continues. So there was a journey, a crazy journey, is fast. We don't know where we're coming. Horses are there. They're carrying a chariot. Main character sits in the chariot. There are two girls that are super smart with super smart horses. They run, and then suddenly they come in front of a big door, and the bouncer is Divine Justice, and the girls say, come on. They have a code word that lets them sneak past, and boom, yeah, this is the kind of, with this code word, they just blew away the door and go further, right into this door. And very important is that they continue the course straight down the road. So let me find that in the Greek. Kata. Okay, so the preposition for that is kata, which is down, goes down. Okay, so this is not an anna basis. They don't go straight up. This is not a door into heaven. This is a door down. It's not an anabasis, an ascent. It's a descent, a katabasis. So we're not going up into heaven, we're going down into. And the goddess welcomed me kindly and took my right hand in hers and spoke these words as she addressed me. So behind the door is a goddess. It's not clear if it's the same goddess or another goddess. But behind the door is a goddess. And she takes the main character's hand and speaks epic words, an epos. She narrates an epos. And this is what she says. Welcome, young man, partnered by immortal charities, reaching our home with the mares that carry you. So she welcomes you. Has very nice words. A super nice goddess. Hey, well, welcome, young man. The word for that is courier. It's again like the name for those young girls. Couriers is also for the young man curio. And she says, well, you are up with immortal charities, deathless charities. So these girls are immortal ones. Then she says, for it was no hard fate that sent you traveling this road so far away from the beaten track of humans, but rightness and justice. Okay, so we must believe that she herself is not the goddess of justice, because she talks about justice. So she says it was not bad luck that sent you on this road. Yeah, it's a road far away from the beaten track of humans. It's far away of the foot where humans far away from the footpath of humans. But it was righteousness and justice that got you on that road, on that track. It's a good thing. So it's a reason to celebrate. And what's needed is for you to learn all things. Okay, so this is about learning. This is about, she has something of importance, of important teaching to say. Both the unshaken heart of persuasive truth and the opinions of mortals in which there's nothing that can be truthfully be trusted at all. Okay, so this goddess speaks of an epos, an epic story that contains two things. One, the truth, and truth alone, plus opinions, beliefs. This is aletheia, the Greek word for truth, and doxa, the Greek word for opinions. And she wants to teach you those two things. She teaches you truth, the ultimate truth, the persuasive, true truth of how things really are. And she tells you about those crazy opinions that cannot be truthfully be trusted. She tells you about what can be trusted, and she tells you about what cannot be trusted at all. Okay? But even so, these two you will learn. How beliefs based on appearance ought to be believable is to travel all through all there is. Okay, so she says, you gotta also understand apparent truth. You need to understand true truth and apparent truth. That what seems to be true. So beliefs that seem true but are not really true. Okay, and even that you need to wrap your head around. Okay, so this is full on. Okay, so this is a crazy action adventure that has racing horses. There's a chase, a heist of some sort going on. This has some urgency. There's a trickery. You know, those little girls that know how to out-trick or convince, persuade, divine justice, and the explosions, and then they find some gold, some golden truth. They find someone who finally teaches them, you know, what is wrong, what is true, what only seems to be true. Okay. So I like to think about this story as a heist. Okay, this is the main character is going to steal some gold from some divine gold, some eternal fire. Okay, so this is action adventure. It's not something boring. It's super intense. I will do the goddess still talks. Okay, I will do the talking. And it's up to you to carry away my words once you have heard them. Okay, so she says she's doing the epic talking, and it's up to you to carry away her myths, her mythos, once you have heard them. What I will tell you is which roads of inquiry and which roads alone exist for thinking. Okay, so these are the pathways of thought. This is in which direction you can think. This is what she tries to teach. The one road that is and is not possible not to be. This is the way of persuasion. For persuasion is truth's attendant. Okay, so it talks about this one road. The road that is. This one road of thinking that is. And it cannot not be. It is. It's impossible for it to not be. Okay, that's the proper one. That's convincing. That's persuasive, you know? That's close to truth, attending truth, obedient to truth. And as for the other, that is not and is necessarily not to be, this I can tell you is a path from which no news returns. Okay, so there's another path. There's this path from thinking that is, and that's the proper one, right? And then there's another one which is not, and that's just not. It's just unthinkable. Yeah, there's a path no news comes from. Why? Because this just isn't. Okay, where there is no way you can recognize what is not. There is no traveling that path or tell anything about it. Okay, so this way of this way that is not, this just can't be. You can't go there, you can't think along it, you can't walk there, you can't tell anything about it. It just doesn't exist. Okay. What exists for saying and for thinking must be. For it exists for it to be, but nothing does not exist. You ponder that. Okay, let's ponder that. Let's dwell on that. The goddess says, what is for speaking and for thinking must be. Okay, that path, that way of being, the way it is for speaking and for thinking. It is, for it is. But nothing cannot be. In other words, that is not can't be. How could it? Okay, it's super simple. Okay, like it's super simple. It's just really super simple. Okay, there's no trick there. What is. What is not, can't. Right? Okay, so this is very little. It's very tiny. But if that is so, it has huge ramifications. Okay, let's continue with the story. What the goddess says. This is the first road of inquiry that I hold you back from, but then I hold you back as well from the one that mortals fabricate. Twin heads, knowing nothing. Okay, like the made-up road that is not. From twin heads. Okay, so dual heads. Heads that think there is and there's not. There's two options. That they know nothing. They know nothing to be. How could that be? For helplessness in their chest is what steers their wandering minds as they are carried along in a daze, deaf and blind at the same time. Okay, it's not like the goddess doesn't think like humans, like mortal humans have figured it out. They like run around drunk, basically. She describes them as being drunk. Mindless wandering, yeah, carried along in a daze, deaf and blind. Indistinguishable, undistinguishing crowds who reckon that being and non-being are the same but not the same. And for all of them, they follow a path that keeps turning backwards on itself. Okay, so these are some beliefs of humans. They think there is what is and what is not, and they think there's a path that you can return to. That there is a path that you can follow and then comes back to itself, like a loop. So they think there's a path that is and is not, so kind of a forking path. And they think there are some sorts like loops that you can go somewhere and come back to the beginning. There is only one tale of a path left to tell. And she says here again, mythos. There's only one myth of a path that can be talked about. And along this way, there are many signs that as well as being birthless, it's also deathless and whole and of a single kind and unmoving, and neither is it incomplete. Okay, this is the path that is. This is the proper path. Because if this path is and cannot not be, all of that follows. If it is, it cannot come into being. It cannot have a birth. If it is, it cannot not be. Therefore, it cannot die. Therefore, it is deathless. If it is, there cannot be other versions of it, because it just is. There's one of it. And if it is, where would it go? It can't. So it cannot move. Okay? So a simple thought. It is. Therefore, it cannot not be. Right? But that has a massive ramification. That means implication on that there can be a start, there can be an end, there can be a birth, there can be a death, there can be motion, there can be no motion. Where would it go? It cannot. It cannot come, it cannot go if it is. Okay, so this very simple thought, it is and it cannot not be, has huge ramification. Okay. It never was and never will it never was and never will be, because it is now altogether one, holding to itself. Okay, so this must be one. It cannot be more than one, because it is. It cannot split into this and that and this and that. For what possible birth of it will you look for? Where would it come from? In what way could it have grown? From what? To say or think from what is not is something I won't allow you, because there is no saying or thinking that is not. Right? So if this way of being comes from somewhere that it's not, like, how could that be thought? How could that be said? And besides, if it started out from nothing, what could have made it come into being later rather than sooner? Okay, if being come from not being, what initiated that? What kicked it? What would there be if nothing would be? What could there be to start being? Makes no sense. So it must either be completely or not be at all. So it either is or it could not be at all. Neither will the strength of persuasive proof ever permit anything to come into being out of non-being alongside it. How would it come out of non-being? How would what is come out of what is not? Just isn't possible, the goddess says. And this is why justice has not allowed freedom for creation or destruction by relaxing her constraining grip. Instead, she holds fast. And the decision in these matters comes down to this: is or is not. Is it or is not? If it is, it is. No discussion about it. If it's not, how could it not be? Makes no sense. But it has already been decided. The judgment has already been passed as necessary, that the second of this path is to be dismissed as unthinkable and unnameable, because it's no true way, while the other is to be allowed to be true and really be. Okay? So yeah, okay, you can think about, is it or is it not? But it's already decided. It must be. It cannot not be. Okay, so simple. And how could it be that being could be at some later time? How could it come into being? Okay, this is about time. How, if being is, how could it have been? In what way will it ever be? It couldn't. For if it came to be, it is not. And if at some point it intends to be, then again it is not. So it is that creation has been extinguished, and of destruction there is not a word to be heard. Okay? So it cannot, so being could not have come into being, and it will not get out of being, because it will never be. because it can only be already. Okay, so there cannot be any creation at all. Being could have not been created. It therefore will also not be able to be destroyed. Okay, so don't forget, we're talking here about reality. It's the being of reality that we talk about. This is the being. The real being is the being of reality. That, as the goddess of Parmenides says, through a logical argumentation, could not have been created. Okay, so this goddess says there is no creator God. There's no God that created anything. The goddess says that there's no God that created anything. And also, there's no dividing it, because it's all alike. There's nothing more here that could stop it from holding together with itself or less there. But all of it is full of being. So it is that everything is continuous with everything, because being draws near to being. This is about singularity and plurality. It says that being could now be split into parts. Like, where could you like rip being apart from where to put it where in order for there to be a second being? Don't forget, there's nothing other than what is. There's nothing other than being. So there's no place to put being where it's not, like non-being, because there's non-being just isn't. So there cannot be a second being. Okay, there cannot be two beings. Like, two beings are really one being. The being of every being is one being. And what's more, motionless. In the bonds of great feathers, it has no beginning or end, because creation and destruction have wandered far, far away. It couldn't move. Where would it go? Where would being move to? To non-being? Again, it's not a path that it can go. It couldn't go at all. It gotta be non-moving. So it cannot have a start, it cannot have an end, it cannot have a creation, it cannot have a destruction. It cannot come, cannot go. And true persuasive evidence is what has driven them out. Okay, so based on evidence, there cannot be a creation or destruction at all. Based on persuasive, real, solid evidence, there can be no creation of being and no destruction of it. It stays just the same in the same unaltered state, lies by itself on its own, and so remains constantly where it is. Okay, so being is there where being is, and doesn't move into being something other than it is. Because there's no way it could go, that it's not it. So it has to be motionless, it cannot go anywhere, it gotta be one, and it cannot change. It cannot change. For mighty necessity holds it fast in the fetters of a bond that shuts it from all around, and this is why it's not right for it to be incomplete, for there's nothing that it wants or lacks, but non-being would lack everything. Okay, so this being is complete. It's whole, it's undivided, unchanging, it knows itself, it's always where it is, doesn't go anywhere. And what exists for thinking is the same as the cause of thought, for you won't find thinking without the being in which it has been uttered. It talks about thinking and being is the same, for there is nothing else and will be nothing else apart from being, because fate has bound it to be whole, unmoving. Its name shall be everything, every single name that mortals have invented, convincing they all are true: birth and death, existence, non-existing, change of place, alteration of bright color, blah 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 blah. So all what mortals, all what humans say there is this and that, plus and minus, start and end, being and non-being, some change, some frequency, this or that. It really turns out that it all is that is. In reality, all is the being of reality. When we are being real, there's only reality, which is non-moving, whole, complete, unchanging, motionless being. Yeah. Yet due to the utmost boundary, it is finished, like the curvature of an all-over well-rounded sphere, from the middle out all equally, for it needs to be neither more nor less, neither here nor there, for neither is there what is not that could stop it to grasp the common one, nor is what is, so that it could be what is. Here more, there less of it, as it is all unable to be taken apart. An incurable asylum, for equally or over it fits in its boundaries. Okay, so this tries to compare reality to basically a sphere that is equal apart from the center. And then she finishes off, that's not my translation, with this I stop my proper saying, speaking, wording, word, and mindful ambient truth, but away from here the seemingly sound seeings of mortals that you learn by hearing the deceiving make-up of my epic words. Okay, so this is very loaded. She ends here saying, my real proper words that are logical stop here, and from now on you hear my deceiving epic words. Okay, and then in the poem she will talk about other things that humans believe there is. Okay, so let's repeat. Let's look at this. Let's try to figure it out on the map. Let's try to make a visual understanding of what this is. What this is going on. Whoop. Okay, that's whoop. Oop, oop. Okay, let's make sense out of it. So we have, how can I best do that? We have horses. We have horses. Some of them, and they are carrying a chariot that is steered by some girls. And in there is our main character, who really has no idea what the hell is going on. And these are on a trippy, crazy race. Okay, so the wheels burn, they're on fire, and they're on oops, they're on their way to a crossroad where there's a door and there's a bouncer. And who is the bouncer? Divine justice. And these girls, girls whisper logoi, the plural of logic, sayings to the bouncer, hey bouncer, let us in. And the bouncer says, all right, good. And the bouncer lets them in and then opens a gaping chasm down. Okay, so very important is that this is a downwards. This is a kata. This is a kata basis, down. And can I do that with my other hand? And in there, we find another goddess. Very nice goddess. And she speaks. How we do that? She speaks. Logos. Logos. That's a logical word. But she also speaks epos, an epic, that contains this story. Okay, and that is a mythos. That's a myth. So the myth is that there was Parmenides on the back of a chariot, led by some girls on the path to burst into a divine realm to find out the truth that they got told then by the goddess. That's the myth. And the logical word is that only being is, that reality is and does not come or go. Whoops. That's what the Logos says. The logic, the divine logic says that reality is and cannot come or go. Okay, so the mythical story, the mythos is that Parmenides did what many heroes of ancient myths did. They went down into hell. So a katabasis is usually referred to people going into hell. They step down into the cave where dark monsters live. There's a step down into hell, into the Hades, led by Hermes. This is also the basics of the monomyth. You know, we have a hero that steps down, that gets into a realm of the unknown, where monsters are to be fought and slayed. And in this case, it's ignorance. The unknown is to be slayed in order for the known to come. Okay, so this is the myth. when we talk, so this is the myth. Okay, so I'm not sure how I should structure this the following. Okay, so just taking the note is this journey from a place towards a place is mythically how it seems that the journey went, but logically what the goddess tells us is that there cannot have been such a journey, because she says the way of being is a way of motionlessness. Therefore, you could never ever reach this goddess through any path at all. Remember when the goddess says this path is a path no humans can travel. Okay, let's decipher that. Let's talk about that part. When we when we logically analyze this poem, particular in mind that Parmenides has a nickname, and that the nickname of Parmenides is the son of Apollo, and who is also another nickname is that Parmenides was a lord of the lyre, and you try to figure out what it means, that you will figure out that what Parmenides practiced as a healing art was the art of stillness. So if you put those things together, is you can see that those horses are Trojan horses, that this journey is a myth, and in reality there has these horses never went anywhere. So this refers to the ancient practice of going into a cave, not to go down into hell, but in order not to step down into hell, but to step down into stillness. Okay, so that means what Parmenides really did is, what quote unquote really did, is on the top of horse animal skin, he lies down in the cave and he's super still, in order to find out what is always here and never moves, which is reality. Okay, so then this thing makes sense. This journey carried by horses has no, that is mythically what happened. Mythically, this was a catabasis that stepped down into hell in order to confront demons, face demons, and break into the realm of reality to heist some golden brilliance and to tell from that inner myth. Yeah, which is interesting, when we compare that with what the cave allegory from Plato suggests is, that you need to go on your path on an anabasis, an ascent, a raising up into higher realms in order to find out the truth, in order to find the sunlight. That this is avoiding the sun. This is actually retreating into darkness and stillness. This is mythically suggests to you go down and step down and walk into the dark, into the unknown, deeper, deeper, deeper. But logically, it's just about slowing down in order to find out, what there is. Okay, what the mythical stories that we tell each other logically really mean. Okay, so this today was a it's big. Okay, so the story seems very innocent. The core logical argument of Parmenides doesn't feel like anything. You just say it is, right? If it is, it cannot not be. This is very simple, and therefore, reality, real reality, is that what is here and cannot come and go. And this is very simple, but the ramifications of that are hardcore. The ramification for that means that there cannot be beings. There cannot be more than one being. The ramification of that is hardcore because that means humans are an illusion. Everything you see among things cannot be real. It may seem to be real, but that's just a belief. Movement, motion, seems to be true, but it is not true. Yeah, I think those two the most. Yeah, that there is birth and there is death. Cannot be true. If you think about us humans and what we fear the most and what we take pride the most, birth dates, the birth of a new being, we celebrate that. The death of a being, we are sad about that. Those the creation, destruction, coming into being and coming out of being, are very important for us. The structure, like when we wake up in the morning and light comes and we go to sleep, light goes away, day and night, the plus and minus, good and the bad, justice and injustice, those dualities structure our thinking, our perception of the world radically. Parmenides, it is to be suggested that this might seem to be, this might seem to be the mythical story of how things run, but logically it does not compute. Okay, so I want to show you Parmenides because it's a piece of storytelling. It is a piece of storytelling that attempts within its mythical structures to speak of the logical truth, which is pretty mind-blowing. The text is much richer. We can analyze it. Parmenides makes a lot of tricks, but we leave it. I like this. Okay, we will come back to next week to Heraclitus, who also was someone who came before the Socratics, who played very differently. And we think Heraclitus said something very differently compared to Parmenides, but it's nevertheless as mind-blowing, and we will then be able to contrast Parmenides and Heraclitus with each other. Okay, so I hope this was rich for you. Usually, if you talk about storytelling and the troubles that you get with storytelling about what is true, what is not true, if you talk about Plato and the meaning of mythos, then you eventually need to look very closely at also Parmenides. So wrote a story that's very mind-blowing. Okay, good. Thank you. For this week's theory, next week's theory will be Heraclitus. If you want to discuss this topic, we can also discuss it in next online meeting. Yeah, you did well. Congratulations for you. Trying out this material, which is pretty intense. Okay, cool. Thank you.